In this video, I'm going to be talking about switch and how to use it. Switch is an alternative to if statements and if else statement. A lot of times using switch is much cleaner and easier to use than if statements. At the end of the video, I'm going to talk about when it's best to use a switch versus when it's best to use if statements and if else statements. Here's an example of using switch statements. In this example, I defined a variable called int number of hours of data type integer. This application will ask the user to enter the number of hours they're asking for a leave the next day. I made sure to convert the data type from string to integer because anytime the user enter information, the application will read it as a string, so we need to make sure that we are converting to the right data type. When using switch, instead of having an if statement where the condition would be the variable equal and you test it against different values, you can have them as cases. So any potential value that the user might enter, I can have it in its own case. Each case has three main components. The potential value that the user might enter, whatever statements you want to execute, if that was the value that the user entered. Each case has to end with a break. Otherwise, it will impact the output of your application and it might cause some errors. At the end of the switch, it's always recommended to end the switch with a default case. This is a catch-all situation. Any other values that were not part of the cases can be caught by this default case. It can be helpful to instruct the user to enter the right data type or input. When you run the application, the user will be instructed to enter the number of hours they're requesting for a leave the next day. Just like if statements, when the user entered number 3, number 3 was tested against all of these different cases. A switch will use the value that the user entered and test it against all of the cases inside of it. In our case, the user entered number 3. In that situation, this was the output that was sent to the user. The good thing about switch is that the values or the cases inside don't have to be in numerical order or alphabetical order. So order is not important. Switch will check all of the different cases and the values inside of it. So when you switch the order of cases, it doesn't matter. The application or the switch will continue to work perfectly fine. If you have more than one value that have the same output or have the same procedures that you're going to execute, you can put both of the values like this. This way, when the user enters 3 or 4, the user will receive this output message. This is the equivalent if-else statements that we need in order for us to execute the same code. As you can see, switch might be a little bit easier to use and more user-friendly. Let's take a look at another example. Here is another example of using switch. In this example, we're going to read the grade from the user. I use this built-in function to change the letter casing to upper casing to make sure that all of the characters that the user enters are always in uppercase. This will make it easier for me to test for conditions inside of the switch. Assuming this is a graduate course, the grades accepted for graduate courses should be either A or B, nothing lower than that. To test for that, we create the first case. Since I'm testing a character, potential value that the user will enter is going to be character. It's no longer numbers. So in this case, A is a potential input that the user might enter. You can show multiple output statements, but I'm okay with this. Make sure when you're writing cases that it's a colon after the case. It's not a semicolon. This application will ask the user to enter their grade. The user will enter their grade as a character. If the user entered A, this will be the output message they receive. If they entered B, this will be the output message. If they entered C, this will be the output message. Any other character, they will receive this output message. Over here, even though I entered the character in a lowercase, using that to upper function converted this to uppercase B, and it was used in the switch. When it comes to using switch or if else or if statements, switch is good when you have a limited number of cases, so a limited number of potential acceptable values from the user. In this case, I have A, B, C. That's a limited number of acceptable values, so switch would be a good option to use. Two, when it's an exact match, so the user have to enter A, B, or C. There's no other values in between. If and if else statements are great when you are testing a range. If you're testing a range of numbers between 1 to 50 or 1 to 100, if you use a switch, you have to write 100 cases because you have to test every single number between 1 to 100. And if you're dealing with double data type, then you have an infinite number of cases that you have to use. In these situations, so if you're testing a range or a value within a range, if, nested if, and if else are a much better option than using a switch. I hope you found this video helpful. Have a great rest of your day.